Have you ever stopped to think that the year you were born wasn't random? That even the last digit of that number carries a deep mark of your essence, your choices from past lives, and the lessons you're meant to learn in this incarnation? According to ancient Buddhist teachings, the last digit of your birth year represents a specific type of karmic energy, a direct reflection of your spiritual past, and understanding this number can change the way you see yourself and your life's path. We're not talking about cheap horoscopes or generic numerology here. This is about ancient wisdom passed down by monks who saw life as a continuous cycle of learning, death, and rebirth. For them, being born in a specific year with a specific number was a direct result of actions from past lives, and this was reflected in your personality, occurring challenges, and even the emotional pain you might carry. You may not remember your past, but it left clues, and one of those clues is in the last digit of your birth year. Here in this video, you'll discover how each number from 0 to 9 represents a different karmic footprint. Some people were born to heal, others to lead. Some are paying off old debts while others are starting the cycle anew with more lightness. By identifying the number that's been with you since birth, you'll connect with something greater, something you've perhaps always felt but never knew how to explain. This number reveals hidden traits of your soul and what your past life still wants to teach you. But before we dive in, go ahead and give this video a like. It helps this content reach more people who are also seeking selfish dissolution. Subscribe to the channel because every week I bring deep teachings and spiritual topics that might resonate with you, and drop a comment below to let me know where you're watching from. I love seeing how far this energy is reaching. Now take a deep breath, connect, because what you're about to discover might change how you see who you really are. Before I show you the spiritual meaning of the last digit of your birth year, there's something crucial you need to understand. In Buddhism, especially in the older traditions tied to Tibet, India, and Thailand, life doesn't begin at birth or end at death. It's a flow, a continuous journey where the spirit goes through cycles of learning, and each rebirth carries the mark of what came before. Nothing is random, not the family you were born into, not your body, not your birth year. The wisest monks always observed patterns. They knew certain people carried very specific energies. Some were born with an ease for science, others with restless minds, some with natural talents, others with recurring pain, traumas, or fears that couldn't be explained in this life. And in many cases, a small detail like the last digit of your birth year served as a starting point to understand the path that soul had already walked and what it was trying to heal. Now that's why this video isn't just entertainment, it's a tool for reconnection. By understanding your number, you're not just hearing a fun fact, you're looking back at lives that are gone, at old karmas that might still be active, and at spiritual gifts that may be dormant within you. This number is a symbol, a code, a clue about your soul's journey. So from now on, pay attention, listen with an open heart, because when we start talking about the numbers, something inside you might awaken, as if an ancient part of your soul is recognizing something it already knew but had forgotten. Let's start with the first number. If the last digit of your birth year is 0, know that this isn't just any detail in the spiritual path. Especially within the oldest Buddhist schools, the number 0 represents both the beginning and the end. At the same time, it symbolizes the fertile void, the space where everything is born and everything returns. For Tibetan monks, the 0 is the mark of a soul returning to the start of the cycle. It's the sign of those who are restarting a new spiritual journey after one or more intense lives marked by excess suffering, ruptures, and often abandoning their own purpose. Being born under the symbol of 0 means you're a soul in the process of an energetic reset. This suggests that in past lives you may have carried deep guilt, lived through emotional extremes, or disconnected from your spiritual core. This new incarnation comes as a quiet invitation from life. Clear, restart, rebuild. It doesn't matter what you lived through before. What matters is that now you're at ground zero, the point where there's no longer the weight of the past, only space to create something new. People with a 0 often have lives that seem slow to take off. They go through long phases of introspection, doubt, and inner rebuilding. They're the ones who frequently face forced pauses in illness, a loss, a sudden change. Of course, this isn't old luck. It's the universe clearing out old noise so you can learn to build consciously, step by step. These souls are deeply sensitive, quiet inside, but carry a wisdom no one can teach because it comes from the depths of time. Buddhist monks believe that those who are reborn with this energy are here to restore balance and reclaim their personal truth. These are people born to simplify, heal family patterns, and break old karmic cycles. The 0 doesn't carry the energy of repetition, it carries the rare chance to rewrite everything from scratch. That's why these people feel at some point in their lives a strong call to abandon patterns, break with old stories, and create something that does not yet exist, whether it's a new way of living, a new project, or a new version of themselves. Behind this energy lies a soul that has seen too much in past lives. It experienced everything it needed to, and now it seeks depth. It's common for these people to have little tolerance for superficiality, emotional games, or chaotic environments. They feel a need for peace, order, and silence. And even without understanding why, they often isolate themselves or feel different from others. This isn't weakness, it's a sign that the soul is in transition, moving away from the automatic wheel of karma and consciously choosing a new path. The challenge for those with the number 0 is not to get lost in the void. Since this energy represents the absolute beginning, many feel like they're starting from nothing, with no foundation, clarity, or direction. It's normal to feel lost at times, but it's precisely in this void that the power lies, because the 0 is the fertile field where any reality can be created. The soul that accepts this restart as a blessing, not a punishment, accesses a spiritual freedom. Few people know, if you have the number 0, your life won't be a repetition of the past, it will be a conscious creation of the future. But this only happens when you stop trying to fit into other molds and start listening to your inner voice. You didn't come to repeat, you came to redefine, to silence old noise, to reorganize family energy, to show a new path. And the most beautiful part is that even without realizing it, you're already doing this with every choice that doesn't repeat, with every cycle you choose not to continue. Remember, the 0 is where everything begins. It's where Buddha sat in silence and awakened. It's where the sound of the universe hasn't yet been made, and because of that, it's potential. If this is your number, your soul is giving you a new chance. Use it consciously, live with truth, and remember you're not empty. You're the space where everything can bloom. If the last digit of your birth year is 1, you're not here by accident. According to ancient Buddhist spiritual traditions, this number represents a soul returning with a clear sense of purpose. This means that in one or more past lives you went through intense learning journeys and now carry an energy that drives, directs, and builds. The mark of the 1 indicates you came back to Earth with an active mission, not just to live, but to lead paths, start ideas, and inspire transformations. Your presence is a call, and wherever you are, something new needs to happen. In esoteric Buddhism, the 1 represents the first manifestation after the void, the point where consciousness leaves the state of silence and chooses to express itself in the material world. This energy isn't gentle, it's direct, powerful, and demanding. People with this spiritual frequency often feel from a young age there's something more to do, even when they don't know exactly what. They're restless, driven by an inner fire that doesn't go out, even if they try to fit in. Sooner or later, they realize they were born to walk ahead, not behind. This leadership isn't about titles, authority, or positions. It's a spiritual leadership, invisible, that shows up in your stance, your decisions, and your ability to break patterns. You came to the world to do what no one else was doing. This could mean creating a new way of living, building a family, different from the one you had, bringing a unique approach to work, or even starting an inner healing movement that others around you haven't had the courage to face. The number 1 carries the spark of transformative action. But with this mission comes the weight of challenge, because often the world isn't ready for those who go first. That's why people with the number 1 feel so much resistance from others, from life, and even from themselves. You might face criticism, rejection, isolation, or constant doubts about your worth. This is all part of the path of those who came to pioneer, not repeat. The world resists newness until it proves its strength, and you'll need to trust in yours even when everything seems against you. According to monks from the oldest lineages, this type of soul tends to experience moments of rupture, where everything built seems to collapse suddenly. Relationships, projects, family structures, everything can feel unstable. But this doesn't happen by chance. The universe is always repositioning you, pulling you out of places where your soul is being wasted because the number 1 didn't come to stagnate. When you accept this, you understand that endings are just beginnings in disguise, and your strength lies not in staying where there's no life, but in starting anew with awareness. Another key point for those with the 1 is learning about the ego. People with this energy can be tempted to control everything, to constantly prove they're right, or to carry the weight of the world alone. But the true spiritual master with the number 1 is the one who learns to lead with humility, who listens, embraces, and allows others to grow. A balanced one doesn't need to shout to be heard. Their strength comes from example, from the courage to be true, and from the boldness to move forward, even when no one follows. You've probably noticed you can't stay long in places without movement, in relationships that don't evolve, or in routines that kill your creativity. That's because your soul needs construction, challenge, and direction. When you deny yourself this, your energy suffers, and symptoms like unexplained fatigue, irritation, a sense of suffocation, or even psychosomatic illnesses can arise. Your spirit wants to expand, and if it can't do so outwardly, it will try to do so inwardly, often causing self-abandonment, anxiety, or emotional breakdowns. But here's a truth you can't forget. You were chosen to take the first step. Life entrusted you with the hardest task, to begin, and that alone shows the greatness of your soul. You don't need to know the whole path, you just need to start. And by starting, you light the way for others. The number 1 is the torch in the darkness, the breath of courage in a fearful world. And even if you don't see it yet, your existence is already paving paths simply because you chose to live authentically. If the last digit of your birth year is 2, there's something in you that no one probably taught you to name. A quiet sensitivity, a sharp intuition, a heart that seems to absorb the world around it. And that's no exaggeration. Buddhist wisdom explains that souls with this energy return to life with the mission of reconnecting what's been broken. You came to the world to unite, soften, balance, and understand. But before you can do this outwardly, you need to learn to do it inwardly. And there lies your first challenge. You feel too much, but you've learned to hide it. From a young age, you notice things no one said out loud. You could feel the vibe of a room just by walking in. You sensed when someone was sad, even if they were smiling. You cried over silly things that others thought were exaggerated. Maybe you heard a lot of "you're too sensitive," "don't take everything to heart," or "that's just drama." But what no one knew is that your sensitivity isn't weakness, it's your gift. The world shouts, and you hear the subtext. The world shuts down, and you stay open. That's your nature, and it's rare. Souls with the vibration of 2 carry a kind of emotional radar. They see where it hurts, even if no one shows it. And because of this, they often become the emotional guardians of their family group or community. They're the ones people turn to for venting, for understanding, to feel they're not alone. But the truth is, those with the 2 often feel deeply alone themselves, because while you care for everyone else, who cares for you? Ancient Buddhist monks said that those who return with the number 2 carry a karma of reconciliation. This means that in past lives, you may have experienced relationships marked by abandonment, betrayal, separation, or disconnection. In this life, you came to restore bonds, including the bond with your own heart. That's why you often attract broken people, difficult situations, or emotional dramas. Your soul wants to learn to love without losing itself, to offer empathy without sacrificing its own dignity. You've probably felt like you're in the background, that you give more than you receive, that you stay silent to avoid conflict, that you've forgiven things that still hurt you just to keep the peace, that you've accepted less than you deserve, to avoid seeming demanding. This is all part of your path, but it's also a warning. Those born with the number 2 need to learn that empathy without boundaries becomes self-abandonment. Your mission isn't to erase yourself, it's to be a bridge, and bridges don't break to please those who cross them. You also have a powerful gift, the ability to harmonize. You transform environments with your presence. You ease tension, bring relief, offer listening and compassion, sometimes without even speaking. Your mere presence heals, and even if others don't say it, they feel it. You have the gift of water. You adapt, flow, navigate around obstacles, but you can also drown if you don't respect your own limits. When you learn to use this gift consciously, you become one of the most healing beings there is. But the number 2 also comes with a warning. Don't lose yourself trying to please others. Your soul needs silence, beauty, and self-care. You need to nurture yourself as much as you nurture others. The key here is balance. When you start saying no without guilt, when you learn not to carry burdens that aren't yours, something inside you aligns, and that's when your true power blossoms. Because a balanced 2 doesn't live for others, it lives in connection with everyone, without losing itself. If this is your number, know that you're not alone in this mission. Thousands of souls are awakening now to the same call to heal relationships, restore self-love, and bring back listening and tenderness to the world. You're one of those souls, and even if the path feels lonely at times, every act of compassion you offer, including to yourself, is exactly what you came here to do with gentleness, depth, and real love. If the last digit of your birth year is 3, know that you carry a light that doesn't go out. But you may not always have felt this. Many people with this vibration have spent parts of their lives feeling like they're too much. They talk too much, feel too much, dream too much, have too many ideas, and they end up trying to hold themselves back. But according to Buddhist masters, the number 3 is the soul that returns to express what was silenced, to turn emotion into art and pain into creation. You came to shine, even if sometimes you have to fight your own shadow to do so. The 3 represents the energy of emotional expansion. People with this number have a natural ease for touching others with their words, their gaze, their humor, their presence. They have a light, often childlike glow that attracts and warms. But behind this glow is a soul that's known darkness, and that's exactly what makes the number 3 so special. It's someone who smiles even knowing pain, not because they ignore suffering, but because they've understood it. Doesn't have to be the end of the story. Buddhist monks say that souls with this vibration lived past lives marked by emotional repression, places where they couldn't be themselves, where their voices were silenced, where their ideas were undervalued. In this life the call is clear: be, feel, speak, share. You no longer need to hide your emotions or try to fit into molds made to diminish you. Your soul returned to create, and it doesn't matter how, through art, humor, words, gestures, or your unique way of touching life. You've probably felt misunderstood, called exaggerated, intense, or overly sensitive, and maybe because of that you've learned to swallow words, hide feelings, or stifle dreams. But the number 3 suffers in silence. Your healing lies in expression. When you write, sing, dance, share, or simply speak with an open heart, something realigns inside you. You start to remember who you are. You start to come home. It's common for these souls to have faced rejection in the past, whether in childhood, relationships, or work. This happens because the glow of the 3 unsettles those who haven't found their own light. But that's no reason to hide. Quite the opposite. You came to the world to show it's possible to live with truth, lightness, and depth all at once. Your way is your power. Your authenticity is your mission. When you stay silent, the world loses a piece of the healing you came to offer. Another important point. The 3 is the energy of connection with the inner child, not in an immature sense, but in the purest, most spontaneous and creative sense of being. You have an ease for seeing beauty where no one else does. You can laugh at yourself. You can turn ordinary moments into eternal memories. This is sacred. But sometimes life will try to harden you with criticism, trauma, or loss, and that's where your challenge lies. To keep your heart open even when everything around you asks you to close it. You have a channel of healing within you that works through expression. Whether speaking, creating, or inspiring, you touch people in ways you might not even notice. When you share your truth, others see themselves in you, and that's where the magic happens. When your vulnerability becomes a bridge, and your old pain becomes a source of liberation for you and for those who hear you. If the number 3 is your vibration, never silence yourself. Never dim your light to fit into someone else's darkness. You didn't come to fit in. You came to expand, to turn words into healing, art into truth, emotions into bridges. And even if you still doubt your strength, the truth is clear. The world needs exactly your way of feeling and expressing. If the last digit of your birth year is 4, there's a good chance you're the person everyone turns to when things fall apart. And that's no coincidence. Ancient Buddhist teachings say that the 4 is the energy of structure, the soul that returns to life to support, organize, protect, and rebuild. It's the vibration of invisible pillars, the ones that don't show up in photos but without which nothing stands. You may never have felt special like others, but that's because your value lies precisely in the strength no one sees. Souls with this spiritual mark often lived past lives marked by instability, chaos, or abandonment. They experienced what it's like to live without a foundation, direction, or ground. So in this incarnation they return with an almost instinctive drive to create order, security, and routine. From a young age, these people feel they need to step up, that they can't fail, that they always have to be available, strong, ready, and they end up taking on too many responsibilities, often without realizing they're carrying everyone's weight except their own. You're probably the kind of person who works while everyone else rests, who holds it together when everyone else crumbles, who doesn't know how to ask for help but is always helping. And this creates a subtle trap. You get so used to surviving that you forget to live. Your soul is so loyal to the mission of keeping everything running, that you often forget you need care too. The number 4 is strong, but it's not made of iron, and behind that strength is a heart longing for lightness, rest, and recognition. Buddhist monks said that the 4 is the number of spiritual discipline, but note discipline isn't rigidity, it's consistency with wisdom. People with this number tend to be very self-critical, seeking perfection, control, or stability at all costs. But the great lesson of the 4 in this life is to understand that not everything needs to be under control. There's beauty in imperfection. You don't need to fix everything all the time, especially what isn't your responsibility. Your mission is to build, yes, but also to learn to trust. Maybe you feel like you don't have time for yourself, that there's always something to do, fix, or take care of, and this might be the result of a soul that believes it will only be loved if it's useful. But that's not true. You deserve love even when you're not solving anything. You're worthy of rest, pause, and lightness. When you start allowing yourself this, the 4 stops being just the structure for others and becomes the foundation for yourself. And that's when your strength blossoms, with balance, without rigidity, without exhaustion, without constant pressure. There's a quiet beauty in you, a wisdom that doesn't come from books, but from the daily practice of being present. Even when tired, you're the kind of soul that turns chaos into routine, fear into plans, despair into solutions. And maybe no one tells you this often, but the world around you only stays whole because you're there, even if invisible, even in silence, even if you feel alone. You are the ground, you are the safe harbor. The challenge of the 4 is not to harden too much, not to close yourself off in the habit of carrying the world without asking for help. You need to remember that structure isn't a prison, it's a support, and you have the right to lightness, art, pleasure, and silence too. Your soul is ancient, yes, but it's not here just to work or protect others. It's here to live with presence, and your presence, even quiet, is one of the strongest forms of healing there is. If this is your number, know that your mission is grand, but it doesn't need to be solitary. By allowing yourself to be seen, to ask for help without guilt, to accept that you too can be vulnerable, you find a new kind of strength, one that comes not from effort, but from trust. You don't need to carry everything alone. You've already proven enough. Now maybe it's time to start building a life that supports you from within too. If the last digit of your birth year is 5, you've probably felt it in every cell of your body. You weren't made to live trapped. No matter the place, relationship, routine, or even an idea, if it confines you, you start to feel sick inside. Buddhist masters saw the number 5 as the representation of souls carrying the element of air, free, quick, instinctive, tied to movement and expansion. But this freedom comes with a cost: instability. The soul that returns with the 5 wants to live many lives within one, and that can be both your gift and your chaos. People with this spiritual vibration are explorers. They have a thirst to know, experience, discover, break rules. They're the ones who always ask, what if it's different? What if I don't want the same path as everyone else? From a young age, the 5 challenges expectations, questions the world around them, and feels there's something bigger out there, something no one's talking about, something that needs to be lifted. And this can make you seem restless, unstable, or even irresponsible in others' eyes. But deep down, all you want is truth, expansion, and meaning. Souls with the number 5 lived past lives marked by repression, confinement, or repetition. They might have been forced to obey, follow a pattern, or live a life they didn't choose. In this life, they return with an energy that refuses to fit in, and that's why the 5 is so tied to revolution, not just external, but internal. These people are always changing, and sometimes even they don't know why. But behind the change is a soul trying to find its own voice, a soul clearing memories of confinement from past incarnations. But this freedom has a price. The number 5, when unbalanced, can fall into excessive movement, changing everything all the time, starting projects and not finishing them, getting involved with people but not committing, chasing the next new thing without savoring the now. And then comes the circulation, the disconnection, the anxiety, the feeling of always going but never arriving. The deep lesson for this soul is profound. True freedom isn't doing whatever you want, it's being fully present where you are. And this inner stability is what the 5 most needs to cultivate in this life. That's why relationships are such big mirrors for those with this number. You've probably felt fear of being trapped, fear of losing yourself in another person, and maybe you've run away before even trying. But the soul of the 5 needs deep connections, even if it fights against it. You weren't born to be alone, but to learn to be free, even within love. When you understand this, you stop running and start building, not something rigid, but something that respects your inner wind, while anchoring your roots in what's true. Another key aspect of this energy is versatility. People with the number 5 have multiple talents. They learn quickly, adapt easily, reinvent themselves whenever needed, but often they feel lost exactly because they can do so many things. The spiritual mission here is to use these gifts to serve something greater. When you find a clear purpose, something you truly believe in, all this energy organizes itself and you become unstoppable, a transformer, an awakener of consciousness, a liberator of souls. Orca's ancient monks used to say that the 5 is the soul of the wind, light, quick, unpredictable, but capable of moving mountains with its invisible force. That force, however, needs direction. When you align internally, everything flows. Chaos turns into creativity, haste turns into inspiration, escape turns into choice, and you become what you always were, but perhaps never accepted. A guide for new paths, a creator of possibilities, someone who came to break the invisible chains of the collective mind. If this is your number, embrace your freedom, but don't use it to run from yourself. The world needs your movement, your energy, your questioning voice, but above all, it needs your presence. Being fully where you are, that's the true flight of the number 5. When you understand this, your soul stops chasing freedom and starts living it. If the last digit of your birth year is 6, there's something in you that's impossible to fake, an almost sacred need to care for those around you. From a young age, you may have felt responsible for others. Maybe you took on adult roles as a child, carried pains that weren't yours, or felt loved only when you were being useful. And that wasn't by chance. According to Buddhist masters, the number 6 represents souls that return with the mission to restore love in the world, starting with those closest to them. This mission is beautiful, but also challenging, because those with this vibration didn't come with a light soul. They came with a soul full of emotional memories from past lives. These are people who in previous incarnations experienced deep losses, abandonments, betrayals, or situations where they couldn't protect those they loved. In this life, these souls return with a silent commitment to leave no one behind. And this, even unconsciously, puts you in positions of extreme giving, where you often care for everyone except yourself. It's very common for people with this energy to attract imbalanced relationships, people who demand too much, situations where you need to constantly prove you're good, loyal, trustworthy. This happens because the 6 has a light that attracts, but also a tendency to forget its own boundaries for the sake of harmony. Your greatest challenge isn't loving, it's learning to love without losing yourself, without trying to fix others, without carrying everyone's guilt, without turning love into sacrifice. True spiritual love begins when you include yourself in what you offer. You've probably been the shoulder for many to cry on, the advisor, the support, the foundation. You've held pain in silence to avoid worrying anyone. You've made choices that hurt you just to avoid conflict. And all this shows the size of your heart, but also how much it's been wounded by not feeling allowed to receive. Those with the number 6 need to learn that real love doesn't demand you destroy yourself to exist. It starts with self-acceptance, and only expands with truth and balance. The Ju energy of the 6 is deeply tied to family, not just biological but spiritual. You have a rare ability to create deep bonds, to make others feel welcomed, seen, loved. But you might also feel like you're always the strong one in everything. Try the soul of the 6 carries a sense of duty that when unbalanced, becomes a prison. You don't need to save everyone. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to be available 24/7. You just need to be true and give yourself the same care you give to others. Ancient Buddhist monks said that the number 6 carries the karma of giving. This means the soul came to develop the emotional maturity to love with freedom, not out of need, dependency, or guilt, but out of awareness. That's why your relationships can feel intense, confusing, challenging, but they're all teaching you to distinguish between love that traps and love that frees. Your mission isn't to have perfect relationships, it's to evolve through them. You also have a strong healing gift. You may not realize it, but people feel calmer around you. Your presence heals, your touch is therapeutic, your words comfort. This gift is ancient. It comes from past lives where you learned to care, protect, and sustain. But now it's time to use it for yourself too. If you don't care for your energy, set boundaries, or prioritize yourself, this gift turns into exhaustion. And an exhausted soul can't heal anyone. You deserve the same love you offer. Start with yourself. If this is your number, know you're not here to love less, but to love better. To love with awareness, balance, and presence. Don't feel guilty for wanting to care, but don't accept less than you give either. The world needs your tenderness, but you need your own truth. And when these two forces balance within you, something rare happens. Love stops being effort and becomes healing. If the last digit of your birth year is 7, you've probably felt at some point in your life that you don't belong to this world as it is. Maybe you looked around and felt disconnected, like something was wrong with everything. Or worse, like something was wrong with you. But the truth is the opposite. In ancient Buddhism, the 7 is the number of wise, observant ancient souls who return to Earth with a different mission, to seek truth beyond appearances. People with this vibration are naturally introspective. They prefer silence to superficiality, depth to the fleeting, truth to appearances. And because of this, from a young age they might have been seen as different. Maybe you struggled to fit in, or were considered odd, reserved, or in your own world. But what few understand is that your inner world is vast. You observe everything, process everything, feel beyond the surface, and that's exhausting. It demands solitude, time, and spiritual maturity. The soul of the number 7 often carries memories of lives spent searching for answers in sacred places, temples, mountains, ancient spiritual schools. These are people who were monks, healers, hermits, scholars, and in this life they return with a thirst for meaning that isn't satisfied by ordinary things. You need to understand, to dive deep, to find something that connects everything. And until you do, you might feel an emptiness no quick pleasure can fill. But this depth comes at a cost, because the more you see, the more you notice the world's illusions, and that can lead to loneliness, skepticism, or silent sadness. The 7 is the number of questioning, of doubt, of discomfort with the obvious. That's why many souls with this vibration go through long periods of crisis, existential, emotional, spiritual. But what seems like collapse is actually a call to a higher truth. You're not breaking, you're awakening. Another striking aspect of the number 7 is spirituality. Even if you don't follow any religion, there's a sense of connection to something greater in you. Maybe it's through nature, meditation, study, or art, but that connection is real and needs to be nurtured. When you stray from your spirituality, from your inner search, everything in your life seems to lose meaning, because the soul of the 7 didn't come for an ordinary life. It came to touch the invisible and bring wisdom to a sleeping world. It's important to understand that with this number, you're not here to please, you're here to see. And because you see, you'll often be misunderstood. Your questions unsettle, your silence unsettles, your clarity unsettles. But that's part of your path. You're not the problem, you're the mirror. And not everyone is ready to see themselves. Learn to stand firm in who you are, even when the world around you seems shallow. Depth is your home. You might feel like you know things without having learned them. Intuitions that prove true. Sensations no one understands. And that's not an illusion. It's part of your spiritual sensitivity. The number 7 is the one that pierces veils, that senses, that sees beyond. And when you start trusting this gift, your life changes. The answers come, the connections form, the truth appears, and you realize you were never lost, just looking in the wrong place. If this is your number, embrace your search, honor your thirst for meaning. Don't settle for less than authenticity. And remember, you didn't come to fit in, you came to awaken, even if that leads you down solitary paths at times. Those are the same paths walked by souls who in other lives were also guardians of the invisible. You're one of them, and the world needs your vision now more than ever. If the last digit of your birth year is 8, you carry one of the most intense energies of all. This is the mark of souls who return to Earth with strength, ambition, and a destiny for leadership. But contrary to what many think, this isn't just about material success. In Buddhism, the number 8 represents the path of realization through balance between the inner and outer worlds. It's the number of direct karma. What you sow, you reap, and often you reap much faster than others. Your soul came to learn to lead, but before leading the world, you need to learn to lead yourself. Souls with this vibration lived past lives where they dealt with power, whether material, political, social, or spiritual. Some used this power wisely, others with imbalance. So in this life you might experience extremes, great victories, great losses, unexpected restarts. Nothing in your journey is average. And this happens because the 8 came to learn to handle the energy of responsibility. When you act with awareness, doors open at an astonishing speed. When you act with imbalance, everything can crumble quickly. The universe tests you constantly. You probably feel a strong drive for autonomy, independence, and achievement. From a young age, you might be someone who never settled for following orders, who always wanted to do things your way, and that's part of your call. You came to create your own paths, but this can make you perfectionistic, controlling, or even impatient. When things don't happen on your timeline, frustration hits, and with it the feeling that you're never doing enough. The great lesson for the soul of the 8 is that power isn't in control, it's in balance. Maybe you've lived through situations where you lost a lot of money, status, structure, or security, and in those moments you ask yourself, why did this happen to me? The spiritual answer is profound. The 8 carries a karma of readjustment. The universe takes everything to show that true value lies in who you are, not what you have. The soul of the 8 needs to remember from time to time that power without awareness becomes a prison, that success without purpose becomes emptiness, and that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. Your strength is already within you, even when everything around you falls apart. You also have a natural talent for management, strategy, and practical vision. People with the number 8 are those who know how to turn ideas into reality. They have focus, resilience, and courage. But at the same time, they need to be careful not to become too hard on themselves and others. Not everything needs to be useful. Not everything needs to produce results. The soul of the 8, when it reconnects with spirituality, starts to understand that the most important success is the one that brings peace, not just applause. Another strong trait of this energy is magnetism. You attract people, opportunities, challenges, all at maximum intensity. And sometimes you carry burdens that aren't yours just because you feel you need to handle everything. This is common in souls who were leaders in past lives, but in this life, the call is different. You came to lead with heart, with empathy, with presence. You don't need to be harsh to be firm. You don't need to command to be respected. Your true power is born when you're at peace with who you are. Buddhist monks used to say that the number 8 is like fire. It can warm and illuminate, or it can destroy depending on how it's used. And that's exactly your spiritual journey. You have energy to spare, you have vision, you have capability, but you need to ask yourself constantly, what's all this for? What really matters in the end? When you find that answer, everything changes. What was once pressure becomes a mission. What was once struggle becomes surrender. And what was once karma becomes liberation. If this is your number, understand you came to the world to do great things, yes, but not at the cost of your soul. Success with purpose, power with compassion, ambition with awareness. This is the true path of the awakened 8. And when you find that balance, there's no limit to what you can create within and outside yourself. If the last digit of your birth year is 9, then you're the kind of person who often feels emotionally drained without knowing why. You have a sensitivity that's hard to explain, an almost painful empathy, as if you carry the world's pain within you, and you do. In Buddhism, the 9 represents the soul in its final turns on the wheel of rebirth. Someone who's lived many lives, played every role possible, and who now returned with one purpose, to serve evolution, both their own and others. You may have felt since childhood that you saw more than others, that you felt too much, that you noticed lies, hidden truths, intentions behind gestures. And that's not your imagination, it's part of your spiritual inheritance. The number 9 carries a refined intuition that often can't explain what it feels, it just knows. And this gift can become a burden if you don't learn to protect yourself energetically, because the soul of the 9 attracts confessions, pain, cries for help, as if others instinctively know you have something different, and you do. Souls with this vibration lived lives of deep learning. They've been victims and oppressors, leaders and followers, at the top and at the bottom. So in this life they return with a broader, more compassionate view. But this also means you often feel out of place in the world. Small talk tires you, superficiality bothers you, and above all you have an immense desire to do something truly meaningful, even if you don't yet know what it is. It's common for the soul of the number 9 to go through significant losses, forced endings, and painful separations. This isn't punishment, it's karmic detachment. The universe is constantly preparing you to let go, to release, to close cycles, because your mission is to evolve and to guide others too. You're like the healer who bleeds alongside, who feels others' pain as if it were their own, who struggles to say no because they know how much others need them. But here's your challenge. Don't confuse compassion with self-abandonment. You're not here to carry the world on your shoulders. You're here to inspire the world with your presence, your listening, your calm, and your wisdom. You're someone who with few words changes the vibe of a room, who carries a quiet maturity often mistaken for coldness, but which is in fact depth. And those who don't have that depth won't understand, and that's okay. The 9 doesn't need to be understood by all, it just needs to remember that its soul is rare and has a unique role. Another strong trait of the number 9 is the tendency to put others first. You help, support, understand, console, and often you don't receive the same in return. You might even have developed a certain distrust of the world, a quiet sadness, but this is the moment to change that. Your healing begins when you learn to embrace yourself with the same love you offer others. It's not selfishness, it's spiritual justice. A soul as old as yours needs silence, rest, space. It needs to learn to choose itself without guilt. Buddhist masters say that the 9 is the number of transcendence, that is, the soul that's no longer here to compete, prove or conquer, but to release everything that still ties it to suffering. That's why meditation, spirituality, art and service are essential paths for those with this energy. You find relief when you're helping, creating, or near the sacred, and it's in those moments that you reconnect with who you've always been, long before this life. If this is your number, understand you are a closure, a point of passage, an old soul that returned to heal, to inspire, to conclude ancient stories. You don't need to rush, you don't need to shine, you just need to live with truth, with lightness, with love. And when you do, everything around you transforms, because your energy isn't loud, but it's deeply transformative. Now that you've discovered what the last digit of your birth year can reveal about your past lives, you might be feeling something hard to explain. Maybe it's a quiet sense of recognition, like an ancient part of you has awakened. Maybe you heard a part and thought, that's exactly me, and it's not by chance. The deepest truths of the soul don't come with noise. They reveal themselves in goosebumps, in silence, in the still gaze that feels without understanding. You just touched something that was stored, waiting for the right moment to be remembered. These numbers aren't magical in the usual sense of the word. They don't predict the future or label your identity. They're spiritual mirrors, reflecting traits, patterns, and memories you've carried for a long time. And now that you have this information, the most important question isn't whether you believe, but what you'll do with what you felt. Because this journey doesn't end here, it starts now, with awareness, curiosity, and the courage to live your truth. And maybe for the first time you understand why you feel what you feel, why you act in certain ways, why you get emotional about things no one understands. These explanations don't come from reason, they come from the soul. And the soul speaks in symbols, intuitions, small signs, like a number in your birth year. This video isn't a final answer, it's an invitation, a call to start listening again to who you've always been before the world taught you to forget. If this touched you in any way, I ask for 3 simple but very important things. First, like this video, it shows the platform that this content deserves to reach other souls, also searching for something deeper. Second, subscribe to the channel, because here you'll find more messages like this, made with truth, respect for your spirituality, and the care your journey deserves. And finally, comment below where you're watching from. It might seem small, but this exchange connects us, and you never know who might resonate with your energy in the comments. Remember, you're not alone in this search. There are other souls awakening at the same time as you. And if you made it this far, it's because you're part of this spiritual generation that's starting to remember its origins, heal its cycles, and build a new consciousness. You have an important role in this, maybe small in the world's eyes, but immense in the vibration it carries. Every individual awakening is a light that shines in the collective darkness, and today you lit yours.